Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the monthly Sustainment webinar circuit. We've got some special guests here for today. Looking forward to introducing them to you. We have Mike and Suzette from the U.S. Commercial Service here with us, and then Chris McCole, Sustainment's Director of Operations. Chris, I'm going to hand it on over to you. Looks like you're on mute. I'm going to see if I can unmute you. There you go.
Awesome. Spencer, thanks so much. Like you said, I'm Chris McCole, the Director of Operations at Sustainment. I lead our partnerships with support organizations at the federal, state, and local level. There are hundreds of support organizations out there that are specifically designated to helping U.S. manufacturers. And you can find a lot of these resources on Sustainment on the resource cards page, which is at the top right of your homepage once you're logged in. Sustainment really is a platform where American manufacturers get work done, and we're going to be continuing to invest in these partnerships that really make the manufacturing economy in the United States stronger. Just one example of these existing partnerships is with state manufacturing extension partnerships. We currently have 25 of these states that are on the Sustainment platform. So states like Texas, Colorado, California, and Ohio have chosen us to run their state supply chain networks. These organizations offer low or no cost services to manufacturers and are definitely worth investigating to help making your business more efficient. It was actually the Colorado MEP, Manufacturers Edge, who originally connected us with the Midwest region of the U.S. Commercial Service. It was clear from our initial call that our priorities and our mission were completely aligned. We have since expanded our partnerships with the U.S. Commercial Service to their nationwide footprint. We're working with them to get manufacturers signed up on the platform. We're speaking with legislators about the importance of the U.S. manufacturing economy and helping manufacturers export. At Sustainment, we're committed to making U.S. manufacturers more efficient and competitive. Our supplier relationship management software helps manufacturers do this in several ways, but obviously two additional ways of growing your business are getting more work and finding new markets. Mike and Suzette will go more into this, but the U.S. Commercial Service can help you do both. Selling into global markets can help stabilize your business during fluctuations of domestic demand cycles and help de-risk your business. The U.S. Commercial Service has decades of experience helping manufacturers export into new markets and can be a great partner for your business. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Mike and Suzette for a brief presentation, and then we'll get into our panel discussion. Throughout the discussion, please feel free to add any questions in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the call. Thanks. Mike, Suzette, all you.
Great, thank you. Well, I will start us off. Good morning or afternoon, depending on your location, and thanks for joining today. So my name is Suzette Nickel, and I'm the director here in our Denver office, and we cover Colorado and Wyoming out of this office. I'd like to share a brief overview of who the U.S. Commercial Service is, for those of you who aren't familiar with the organization. The U.S. Commercial Service is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce's Export Promotion Agency, where our objective is to help American businesses succeed overseas. Our trade professionals are scattered throughout the globe in over 100 domestic, so U.S. offices, and more than 80 U.S. embassies and consulates overseas. If you have not connected with your local Commercial Service staff, we can make that introduction after this webinar. Our export promotion can be couched into four major verticals: export counseling, market intelligence, business matchmaking, and commercial diplomacy. Our services support companies at every stage of exporting, from assisting firms to determining their best international market for lowering overseas trade barriers that cause market access issues for our industries. We provide business matchmaking programs, and we help facilitate partnerships and commercial activity. And that's really the core of a lot of the work that we do. This can range from supporting a small business find a distributor in Mexico to conducting a background check on a potential foreign buyer. Maybe that's a company that you met at a trade show, a company that's contacted you via your website, and you need to learn more about them before moving forward in any type of agreement. And I think finally, and most importantly, the work that we do that's important for this group is that we match opportunities with potential suppliers. And I wanted to give you an example of something this just happened this morning. I received from the U.S. Embassy staff in Zambia a request. They have a local company who's looking for aftermarket replacement parts for mining equipment. And so what that process looks like is, we find out about that opportunity, this potential buyer distributor in Zambia. And now we're going out and we're looking for companies that fit the criteria that have these these parts or manufactured parts, replacement parts. We have identified one company in Colorado already this morning, and we're working to identify some additional suppliers that we can add to this list. So that's just one example of how we would get that information out to potential suppliers, and obviously knowing Sustainment, and we've been working with them to have a way to disseminate some of this information via the platform if you're not already connected directly to us. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn the call over to Mike Rosales, who's my colleague and counterpart in Texas. So over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Suzette. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. So my name is Mike Rosales. I'm the regional director of Central and South Texas region. So we have an office in Austin, an office in San Antonio, and we cover everything pretty much from Waco to the border. And I'm going to just share with everybody an example of the kind of companies we work with. I put it on the chat. But just to kind of let you know, Suzette and I aren't your typical government employees. Suzette has served our country. So thanks again, Suzette, for your service. And then my wife and I have started and sold to businesses, right? So, we know what it is to, we know where you're at, we know where you want to go, and we want to be part of that journey. And so just as an example, real quick, if you click on the link that's in the comments, Spencer, I put it in there, so I'm hoping people can click on it. But this is just an example of one of the companies that we work with. The company's called Better Emissions. And it's interesting because I met them in August of 2023. And so Ben Talamantes is the CEO, and he developed a fuel converter technology. And so long story short, it's a cylinder that you hook up to your fuel line, and it increases the temperature of the fuel that's burned, therefore reducing the emissions by 90%. And it takes like 10 minutes to install. But the funny thing is, back in 2023, there was a gentleman from Mongolia who was trying to connect with us via our colleagues in Peru. And it's kind of weird because it doesn't really kind of make sense. But what we do is we try and connect the dots on the US side. So our colleagues at the embassy in Peru said, hey, Mike, there's this company coming out of Texas. They're in your territory. Do you know them? And the gentleman is from Mongolia. So off the top, it's like, okay, it sounds a little bit fishy. Like, let's just kind of figure this out. And so I was able to get the contact information for Ben, who's the owner. And so I was kind of hesitant because it didn't really match up. And so I was like 50-50. Should I call him? Should I not? And I said, you know what? I'm going to call him. So I called Ben. Ben picked up the phone. I shared with him a little bit about what we did. And he said, you know what? I want to visit with you. Can you come visit me in my facility? I said, it's perfect because I need to make sure that your product is made in the US. Because since we are a US organization or US government, we have to and support only US manufacturers, American made products. And so when I met with Ben and I sat down with him, I realized that his products were 100% Texas made. So it was interesting because he actually doesn't make it, but he has a contract manufacturer. So he's working very lean. So the reason I bring this up is because he's a one-man shop. He's outsourced his manufacturing. He relies on the contract manufacturer to hire people to increase the production of his products. And so within 10 months, like no joke, we helped him increase his global sales, which were nothing, to 3 million across 19 markets. And he created 25 jobs. And the reason I bring this up is because during COVID, he was actually at a point where he was getting ready to sell his business. His business partner suffered a stroke, so his quality of life for his business partner significantly decreased, and he was on the verge of just closing shop. Luckily, his new global sales manager, Arafat, who reached out to him from Mongolia, kind of got his interest going, and so that interest started thinking like, hey, well, what else is out there? And so lo and behold, as we started connecting the dots, he's like, man, if I would have just sold the business, this wouldn't have happened to me. And now he's killing the market. He's just doing a great job, and we're happy to support him. And he's one individual. And this is just an example of the kind of companies we work with. But I'm going to pass it back to Chris so we can continue our program. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much for that. And what a cool, real life story. So kind of, along that vein, Mike, will you just tell us kind of what companies are good, type of clients for you guys, who you work with, and then kind of on the back end of that, kind of who you don't work with as well?
Sure. So we work with companies of all different sizes. So it could be, like I mentioned, Ben, who's a one-man shop, or we could work with, bigger companies that are multinational companies, multi-global companies. But we work with everything from, I've worked with a gentleman for over 15 years who manufactured, so for example, when somebody gets throat cancer, they have to get their larynx removed. And they have a little device which helps them communicate. And the company manufactured this out of the garage, actually. And I've known him for 15 years, and he's doing amazing stuff in over 30 countries globally. So we work with companies that actually have a vision, a strategy, a mission. The product has to be 51% US content. So that basically comes from the final price of the good minus the total value contributed by a non-US or foreign source. So that's the percentage of the US content. We can share more information later on with the group that's listening in. But all in all, that's what we do, and that's what we work with. We do not work with dreamers. We have to take a product and pitch it to our embassy staff and say, look, this is the product that the US company is selling. Can you market this product? Can you help them connect with distributors, agents, foreign governments? Our goal is to work with the quality that America makes. And so those are the companies that we work with and don't work with. And we also don't work with importers. It's got to be US, because basically we're on the US company's payroll, and we're part of the team. And we're happy to share that with everybody that's on the call today.
That's terrific. And I'm sure that that's applicable for the vast majority of people who are on this call. So thanks, Mike. Suzette, we'll go over to you. So how does this actually work? How does a company start the process and kind of get integrated into your environment?
Sure. So the starting process is, where's the company located, right? So we'll just use Colorado as an example. But if you're in Nebraska or Illinois or Kentucky, we would start with that local office. And the process starts with an intake conversation between the company and one of our international trade specialists. And really think of that international trade specialist as that's like if you have an account manager for, your shipping, like UPS, FedEx, whatever, how they're your go-to person for shipping. Well, we're your go-to person for international trade, right? So any of those questions, I like to tell people it's the A to Z of exporting. If you have a question about, I don't know, can I even do this? What are the legal issues that I need to look at? How do I get paid? How do I ship? How do I find a distributor? That is what we help you do. So we start with that intake, that initial conversation, and really just make sure that we're on the same page. I mean, sometimes companies will come to us and they say, hey, I met this great person at a trade show, but I don't know, they're very interested, but I really don't know who they are. We've never sold anything to, Brazil before. Can I do that? Can I sell my product there? And so that's really the start of the conversation, is that connection. So obviously, as with any relationship, the more information you share and the more honest you are about your company and your process and how, all of everything works, how you do business in the US. And then we help determine it. Can we do that business that same way in Brazil? And we do that through working through, as Mike mentioned, our embassy staff, right? So in the U.S. commercial service section, in embassies and consulates abroad, we have an American officer who's, most people are familiar with State Department and state econ officers and that, but we have commercial officers, and then we hire local nationals to work on behalf of U.S. business in that country. So if we're talking about Brazil and we have a medical device that we want to send to sell to Brazil, we start with that commercial specialist that covers the medical industry, and we determine, what is it going to take to make that happen. And that really is the starting point to getting to the international market. And then we're going to be able to bring in all of the other elements that you need, the legal, the finance. So, how are you going to get paid? The, Export-Import Bank, Ex-Im Bank, they have some solutions and insurance programs that help companies get paid. SBA has export working capital guarantee loans and things like that. And so those are all of the extra resources that we're going to introduce our U.S. exporters to during that process and help manage those relationships and make sure that the U.S. manufacturer understands who can help them at what point in their journey.
That's terrific. Thanks, Suzette. Mike, back to you. So there's some incredible products, manufacturers here in the U.S. And even if they have, they feel good about where they're at in the U.S. market, it can be kind of daunting to expand internationally and to take on brand new markets that you might not have any experience with. So with all of your experience, having been at the U.S. Commercial Service for years, do you have any tips and tricks for kind of getting started in this journey?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So like I like to use the wet towel theory. Like if you have a wet towel and you're just wringing it, right? Like how much water can you get out of this towel, right? I think that helps when we converse with companies. Like with Suzette and I, we are interested in the company and what they're doing and how we can help them go from here to there, right? It's funny because when Suzette and I were talking about sustainment, the companies that you work with are the companies that we actually work with day in and day out, but we are located globally where the companies want to be and where they want to grow to. So for us, a lot of times, I'll give some examples, but I just want to kind of let everybody know that everything that we've shared already so far is, like with Ben and Better Emissions, like these companies let us share this information with whoever, right? They're our poster children. Like everything that we talk about with the company is strictly confidential. We keep it in-house. We have Salesforce. We collect this information and keep it in Salesforce and share with our colleagues overseas. So that as we're introducing somebody that's been working in somewhere in Western Ham and now they're going to Europe, that information is transitioned and that other person just picks it up and knows the history of the client and where they've been and where they want to go. So I just kind of want to share that with everybody real quick. But I like to look at with the wet towel, like low hanging fruit, right? So Suzette said, somebody maybe met somebody at a trade show, they passed their card and they're like, okay, well now what? I'm just throw it to the side or it's in a different language. I don't know what to do with it, right? So a lot of times with our companies, they'll give us the cards or they'll pretty much put it in an Excel format and they'll say, look, I met with these companies from this country. We'll take that information and introduce that information or share that information with our colleagues overseas. And they'll say, hey, I know these companies, or oh, I was at the show. I should introduce you to them because I know them, right? So a lot of times there's communication is a big deal. Sometimes English is not their first language, or, maybe they are just, maybe their rep is out and meeting with companies and they're actually the CEO is one that's making the decision. So a lot of times our colleagues know those people. One other thing that I'm thinking about is, like, for example, if over the years you've received international inquiries via email, right? And you just kind of like, oh, this company, I don't know, it's from somewhere else, from some other country, I don't know. Like, let us use that and see if there's anything there. There could be some really great business, but sometimes there's also scams, right? So we also see when people it doesn't have to be a prince from somewhere. It could be somebody that's like, I want to buy $1,000 worth of your product, right? And they're like, okay, well, who is this person? And they sound great, but they're only asking for maybe $200 up front, and you're like, okay, well, that sounds great if I'm spending $200, but I'm making $1,000. There's all these kind of scams, right? And we've even seen them where a foreign government will reach out to a U.S. company. The logo's there, the name's there, everything hits, but our colleagues at the embassies don't. That person that they reached out to, that the name's at the bottom, that person didn't even know that email went out and that it went under their name. So we're always trying to close the gaps. Another one that I think is also important is if anybody's going overseas and traveling, let us know, let us connect you to the U.S. embassies and consulates, go over there, introduce your company. Let's do what we can to facilitate the time there so that you have, a good ROI. So whether you're the boss or you have a boss, there's always opportunity to kind of share moving forward. And we just want to kind of share a few of those examples as well.
That's terrific. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Even outside of scams, even if everything is above board and everything's working out right, I talk to manufacturers almost every day, and they're a little leery about international business. Maybe they just don't understand it because there are some export regulations and standards that they need to be aware of, right? So will you just kind of to talk through, if the process works well, what that actually looks like?
Yeah. So we're talking about two different things. We're going to be looking at what are the import regulations into a country. So when we're talking about the import regulations into another country, we'll just use Germany, for example. What are their rules about what they require a product to have or do in terms of labeling or regulatory oversight? That's a German government regulation, right? So that could be like something like a CE mark. where you have to have a special CE mark to get your product into Germany, into Europe. So that's one thing that we would be looking at when we talk about that assessment and when we're looking at what the company needs to know in order to do international business. But more importantly, I think for a lot of suppliers, especially suppliers that have products that fall in kind of the defense space, right, is our export licensing around military defense products that were created for, or have a military application. But also products that may be controlled. So there's two groups. Department of Commerce under Bureau of Industry and Security has export administration regulations where they control or want to know what products are leaving the U.S. And then the State Department has regulations that they call ITAR, or International Traffic in Arms regulations. And those are a little bit more stringent and strict, right? And so if you need to know before you start this process, where do your products fall? Are they going to fall under Department of Commerce export licensing or State Department export licensing? And then once you know that, walk through the steps. And again, this is a process that we can help you, that trade specialist is going to help you understand what you need to do, because it can be done. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it can be done. It's a kind of a paperwork drill, right? But it's important to do it in advance, because you can't sell or ship or send your product specifications, even if it's an ITAR controlled item, out to that foreign national company until you have the licensing in place. And so it's important to know that you need to have a license and then start the process so that you can proceed efficiently with that, working with that potential buyer. And then, some of that will depend on licensing, depends on what country. So obviously, if you're selling to a NATO ally country, your licensing requirements are going to be less strict or stringent. If you're selling to Venezuela, you might not be able to sell that product to them. And so that's all of the things that we're going to help you understand. What's in the regulation? What's an import requirement for what that foreign government is requiring? How to find that information, and then what the U.S. government requires on the export side. And we're going to kind of bring that all together into a package so that the company understands how to move forward in the process.
That's terrific. Thanks. Kind of shifting topics a little bit here. I've been in discussions with Opportunity Austin and Greater San Antonio, the Ohio MEP. There's a lot of international companies that are looking at moving to the U.S. To take advantage of our incredible workforce, just the rule of law stuff that we have here, as well as access to, the American market. So I see more and more discussions around federal direct investment, or FDI. Mike, can you just explain a little bit, kind of what that is, how that relates to what you guys are doing, and how the suppliers and manufacturers that are on this call can benefit from those foreign companies that are entering the U.S.?
Sure, Chris, thanks. So foreign direct investment is when a company comes from a foreign country and sets up shop here and makes a product here. It's interesting because, when COVID hit, everybody talked about supply chain, right? And so a lot of times if companies are selling, in America or Western Hemisphere, it's better that they're making in the US because they can access it a lot easier. The other thing that's interesting is that almost every state in the US has a foreign direct investment initiative. State of Texas is very strong. Colorado, everywhere that you see, if somebody has land, they're trying to offer incentives for companies to come to bring in business, but also to create jobs. Historically, what happens is a conglomerate will come in and look at it's called a prospect. So they'll look at the location and then they'll think, okay, I need to bring my tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers, and I'll be fine and situated, But now what's happening is a lot of times people don't realize that there's a great supply chain already in the U.S. and that's where Sustainment and your members come in. If for example, if FDI is coming into Austin with Opportunity Austin would benefit from knowing the manufacturers and suppliers in the Austin area, if they're not already aware of them, right? To say, hey, we got this big dog coming in and you do X, this, and this, maybe you can offer some of your services to help them come in sooner and we can lock them in and then they can bring other portfolios of their business. So also a lot of times too, a company will come in representing automotive but then maybe they also do defense, right? So it's a great way for economic development organizations who we work with to know about the manufacturers that are in their area. Another thing is that on the FDI side, we want to make sure that we come in to play and meet these conglomerates too, because once they set up shop, then they will be making a US product. And we want to help them keep the lights on, right? So it's not just like locking up the company here and putting the jobs here. We want to help them grow their business so they can hire more people and give quality jobs to our American citizens. So that's kind of how we play hand in hand in this process.
That's terrific. And then really, kind of just to wrap us up here for the panel discussion, and I want this to be open to both of you guys, but if I'm a manufacturer on this call, like, it sounds great. And what I love about the commercial services, you guys really are partners to these business, as part of the ITA and the Department of Commerce, like, your job is to help these manufacturers. But given your experience and what you see in the world, right now and over the last couple of years, what are really the secrets to success to working with you guys and kind of being efficient and effective in the partnership with you guys?
Well, yeah, I think a great question, because most importantly, as with anything in life, be prepared, right? So international business doesn't happen overnight. You may get one or two, one-off sales, but what we're trying to do is help companies create a long-term strategy, which will help them for long-term success. And like Mike was saying, our goal really is it's a function of economic development. If your company is doing international business and you're diversifying where you're, making your sales, when there's a down cycle in the US, there's an up cycle somewhere else. We're keeping people gainfully employed. I don't remember the number, but the statistics prove that companies that export pay their employees more, they stay in business longer, and all of the good kind of talking points. And the reality is that's what we want to do. So be prepared. Do your homework when you're meeting with the resources that our people and other people are putting in front of you. Create your network so that you know who to go to when you get that opportunity at the last minute. You're prepared for it. You already know, I know that I needed licensing for my product and I already understand the process. I'm not starting from scratch. And then just be ready to move forward when opportunities come. And if you're not 100% certain of the viability, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, we get asked these questions every day. Is this a legitimate company because it seems too good to be true? Sometimes it is too good to be true, but sometimes they're actually legitimate, and we want to seize those ones that are. So I would say, be prepared, do your homework, and create your network are really very key things to do. What do you say, Mike?
So I know this came from Wayne Gretzky, but I always attribute it to Michael Jordan. But you miss 100% of the shots you never make, right? And I think for us, a lot of times, people are focused on what's in front of them right now, right? Their computer, right? I'm working on this task, got this email, I got to get back to this, this lead. But you got to take a step back and say, like, what else is out there, right? And I feel like, for us, in my situation, I love for people to come and talk to me and say, hey, like, this is what I'm doing, right? Like, what are the opportunities? Like, we worked with companies from packaged foods to AI and cybersecurity and everything in between. And for us, we are business development minded centric people. And so as a business, as an American business, your goal is to be number one, be the best, right? And we want to help you get there. But a lot of times it takes conversations, like real conversations. Say, hey, look, you know what? I heard about y'all from Mike and Suzette. We can introduce you. We're happy to introduce you. Well, I don't know if Spencer will put our emails on here or whatever, but we're happy to connect you to our colleagues that are closest to you, because we are all over the US. Our goal is to be number one all the time. And just like our quality of product, that's where we should stand as well. So we're happy to be here and happy to take any questions next as well. Thanks again, Suzette, and thanks, Chris. Thanks, Spencer, for the time today.
Terrific. Mike, thanks so much. Spencer, do we have any questions or comments from the group?
No questions in the chat. This was fantastic, though. Mike, Suzette, it's always a pleasure working with you guys, and we appreciate your partnership with Sustainment and the work that you're doing here. This is excellent. As you mentioned, Mike, there's a great way to get in touch with each of you. Could you share just the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you or Suzette?
Put my email on here. I like to just go straight to it. So I'll put my email if you need to get a hold of somebody in your area. You just email me and we'll lock it up.
That's
I wear my
perfect.
glasses, but there it is. Suzette is Suzette.nickel@trade.gov.
Perfect. There we go, Mike. I got yours pulled up here.
Right.
So that's the best way to get in touch with Mike or Suzette. Suzette is suzette.nickel@trade.gov. Oh, here we go, Suzette.
Yep.
Thanks. I see the
Yeah.
comment here as well.
Spencer, and you know what? I know we're probably waiting for questions, but one thing that I'll mention too on the foreign direct investment side, there's a lot of economic development organizations. And so when I mention that, if you know one in your area, like go to them and say, hey, I'm just letting you know, this is what I do, right? I know it may not make sense right now, but these people, they have a list of, manufacturers, suppliers, service providers, like they know who they can reach out to in case a company comes in, and then they need to be the hub to reach out. So the more you're proactive in business, like everybody knows, the more successful you'll be. So I just kind of want to throw that out as well.
Yeah, that's a great note. Yeah, we preach that a lot here at Sustainment about moving from reactive to proactive. And I think that's an excellent note here to end today's conversation on. We appreciate those who joined in to hear Mike and Suzette drop some knowledge on us from the U.S. Commercial Service. Chris, as always, thank you for being a wonderful host and moderator here. And tune in next month as we have another episode of the monthly Sustainment webinar series. Mike, Suzette, thank you all so much.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
again, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a good one.
Spencer.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye.